Donald Trump has announced his selection for vice presidential nominee, Senator JD Vance from Ohio. This choice is described as audacious and confident, reflecting Trump's belief that he is winning the election. The pick is not seen as strategic in the traditional sense of appealing to specific demographics or states, but rather as a move to solidify Trump's policy legacy and shift away from traditional conservatism. Trump's statement on Truth Social praised Vance's military service, academic achievements, and best-selling book, Hillbilly Elegy. He emphasized Vance's focus on American workers and farmers in key swing states. The selection of Vance is seen as a bold move by a candidate who believes he is ahead in the race. Recent polling data shows Trump leading in several swing states, with significant margins in some areas. This favorable polling may have influenced Trump's decision to choose Vance, who is described as a Trump loyalist and an aggressive debater. JD Vance, at 39 years old, is notably young for a vice presidential candidate. He joined the Senate in 2023 after winning a competitive primary and general election in Ohio. Vance's background is rooted in a blue-collar upbringing in Ohio, which he chronicled in his best-selling book, Hillbilly Elegy. The book, published in 2016, was initially seen as explaining the rise of Trump and the forgotten people in Middle America. It focused on work ethic, personal responsibility, and the cultural shifts in the white working class. However, at the time of its publication, Vance was not a Trump supporter and even expressed concerns about Trump's potential presidency. Vance's shift to supporting Trump is addressed in the podcast, with Vance explaining that he was wrong about Trump and now believes he was a great president. This change in stance is seen as a positive by Trump, who has embraced Vance's evolution. The podcast delves into Vance's policy positions, which are described as heterodox and not always aligned with traditional conservative views. On economics, Vance favors a more interventionist approach, supporting government involvement in industrial policy and protectionist measures for American manufacturers. He has expressed support for tariffs and criticized free trade policies that he believes harm American workers. Vance's views on foreign policy are described as realist rather than isolationist. He differentiates between conflicts based on perceived American interests. For example, he opposes aid to Ukraine, arguing that the U.S. lacks vital interests there, but supports aid to Israel due to strategic considerations in the Middle East. On immigration, Vance aligns closely with Trump's restrictionist stance. He has criticized illegal immigration's impact on wages and expressed concern about its cultural implications. The selection of Vance is seen as opening up new lines of attack for Democrats while potentially expanding Republican appeal to certain voter groups. Vance's articulate and intelligent presentation is viewed as an asset in debates and media appearances. His background and policy positions may help Trump appeal to blue-collar and union voters, particularly in Rust Belt states. However, Vance's outspoken nature and detailed policy positions also provide more material for Democratic attacks compared to other potential VP picks. The podcast notes that Democrats are already targeting Vance on issues such as abortion, healthcare, and his past criticisms of Trump. The podcast then shifts focus to Joe Biden's campaign, discussing his recent interview with Lester Holt and his broader strategy. Biden's approach is described as twofold: attempting to provide economic relief through policies like rent control and continuing to paint Trump as a threat to democracy. Biden's interview performance is criticized, with the podcast host noting that Biden struggled to articulate his points clearly and seemed to contradict his own calls for lowering the political temperature. The president's insistence on continuing to describe Trump as an existential threat to democracy is highlighted as potentially problematic, especially in light of the recent assassination attempt on Trump. The podcast also touches on the ongoing protests outside the Republican National Convention, noting that some demonstrators continue to use inflammatory rhetoric despite calls for calm. The selection of JD Vance as Trump's running mate is presented as a significant development in the 2024 presidential race. Vance's youth, intellect, and alignment with Trump's policy vision make him a notable choice, though one that may invite increased scrutiny and attacks from Democrats. Meanwhile, Biden's campaign faces challenges in messaging and the president's public appearances, with questions about his ability to effectively campaign persisting. The podcast suggests that the race remains fluid, with both sides grappling with how to navigate a tense political climate in the wake of recent events.